At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast. Hope you're well. And on Friday, the 17th of May, it's time for our Friday Five, where we take a look at some of the biggest Nottingham Forest news stories of the week. I'm George Edwards. I'm joined by the Maradona of the Midlands. But firstly, it's over to Jamie Martin to give us this week's headlines.
Hi, this is Jamie Martin with your top 5 Forest stories from the 1865 news desk. Now, the headline to this week's news: Nottingham Forest have been offered the City Ground freehold ownership. After months of speculation and numerous conflicting reports, The Athletic is now reporting that the council have offered Nottingham Forest the chance to own the land on which the City Ground stands, or a longer lease. According to the senior reporter Daniel Taylor, Nottingham Forest have been offered the chance to buy the land on which the City Ground is built and the land above, otherwise known as the freehold, for a price of £10 million. Forest have also been offered a longer lease with a rent price of £1 million per year, with one civic leader describing as urging the club to compare lease price and their wage bill, which stands at £144.9 million per year. While the offer is on the table, the chairman and owners of the club all favour a move away. However, some reports say that half the board are wanting to stay at the City Ground. Towton is the most likely option, though, if they do move away. Forest have also rejected the idea of buying the land where the training ground currently sits, and Towton could be a location for the future new training facility too. This week, Forest signed a partnership with Nottinghamshire County Council, aiming to strengthen their ties, an interesting move given the potential for Towton land acquisition. More updates are expected soon. Is the City Ground really Forest's forever home? Now, the second piece of news this week: Nottingham Forest owner Evangelos Marinakis has taken part in an exclusive interview. This week, he took part in an exclusive interview with the Daily Mail, outlining his thoughts on some huge topics: refereeing, stadium moves, club ambition, and more. On the topic of referees, the owner described how he didn't believe the referee Stuart Atwell should have been selected to referee the club's game against Everton, as he described it as a huge game in the club's survival in the Premier League. He also said there was 3 certain penalties missed and that the club are still considering legal action at the end of the season. And on the topic of legal action, the club are also taking action against Sky for their coverage of the controversial statement post-Everton, and also Gary Neville's mafia comments. Marinakis also admitted that after much speculation from fans, that he himself was for the move to from the City Ground to Towton or elsewhere to another site, citing the need for financial competitiveness and improved revenues as a result of the move as the motive for doing so. A new 50,000-seater stadium has been cited as a potential option in Towton or elsewhere, and the owner wants Nottingham to compete with other big cities such as Birmingham and Manchester and London for sport. The Greek billionaire also stated that he enjoys the uphill and doesn't like things to be easy. He's confident Forest will move up and start a new successful chapter once more, but first, some challenges to overcome. And also credit to Sammy Mockbell of the Daily Mail for his exclusive interview last week. Third piece of news this week: Benfica's scouting chief is on his way to the City Ground. After a rocky few years in recruitment, Forest are looking to shore up their recruitment strategy and are soon to announce the arrival of former Benfica chief scout Pedro Ferreira. After spending almost 2 decades at the Portuguese Giants, spending time as both a youth scout and senior scout, Ferreira eventually took the role as chief scout and later scouting director, holding a high-up role at one of the most successful clubs for recruitment and player sales in revenue sales in history. Making over £300 million in the last 6 years from player revenue, Ferreira and his scouting department found some of the best talent, utilising South America along the way, something of which Forest are starting to do even more. Now with Benfica shaking up their recruitment strategy themselves and also the department as a whole, Ferreira has now decided to leave, and he will likely arrive at the end of the current season ahead of the summer and work along his department, Ross Wilson and recruitment advisor George Sirianos amongst other staff. Now in some transfer news as well, Giovanni Reina is set to return to Dortmund after his Forest loan spell. After a largely unsuccessful loan spell at Nottingham Forest, Gio Reyna will return to the Bundesliga with his parent club Dortmund at the end of the season. Arriving on loan from Forest to Forest in January, Reyna was expected to sign on a deal with a buy option. However, Dortmund signed him into a new deal until 2026 and removed the buy option altogether, potentially offering him a lifeline for his recently declining Dortmund career. Since arriving at Forest, he's featured in 230 plus minutes of Premier League football, scoring none and assisting once, with a final potential appearance against Burnley available on Sunday, where Nottingham Forest could retain Premier League status for one more season. Dortmund are set to play in the Champions League final soon also, with Reina likely to look on at his colleagues before heading back to his club soon and seeing where his potential future lies over in Germany. And the final piece of news this week, Callum Hudson-Odoi has celebrated his 100th Premier League appearance. It's been a tough few seasons for Callum Hudson-Odoi, but he's back now better and has recently played his 100th Premier League game, this time wearing the Garibaldi red of Nottingham Forest. Starting off at Chelsea, Hudson-Odoi broke through under managers Maurizio Sarri and Frank Lampard, gathering appearances and goals along the way, eventually being touted for a £70 million move to Bayern Munich. But after the arrival of Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea, he fell out of favour. But after an unsuccessful Leverkusen loan just after that, he found Nottingham Forest and has since scored 8 goals and got 1 assist in the Premier League this season. He played against his former side Chelsea at the weekend, scoring Forest's second goal of the afternoon, celebrating in style on his 100th appearance in the top division for Forest this time. So, congratulations Callum Hudson-Odoi, and get some more goals on Sunday. But that is the end of the news this week. That is the latest from the 1865 News Desk. I'm Jamie Martin. Be sure to catch up with me on social media via JamieMartin_journalist on Instagram, as my X/Twitter account is currently facing some problems. Updates though still on Nottingham Forest related news throughout the week. Take care. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, Jamie. Now I'm joined by the Maradona of the Midlands. How are you, mate?
I am very well, thank you. And how are you?
Brilliant stuff. Yes, I'm okay, thank you. Now let's move on to the first story that Jamie brought to us, which was that Forest were offered the freehold last week of the City Ground. Now, we'll come to whether or not Forest should and will stay at the City Ground in a minute, but the council have made Forest look pretty silly in all of this, and Maradona for £10 million, given the fact that the other option is to have a £250 million lease over 250 years. It's a quick fix for the council, getting money in straight away. And if Forest are going to stay at the City Ground, it looks like the right decision, doesn't it?
It does. They've called their bluff, like the council have with Forest there. If they're definitely serious about wanting to stay, as they said initially, it's a no-brainer. You pay the £10 million and you take it. But as we've heard this week, the opinions seem to have changed at the top of the club, and so, as I suspected, when the first rumbling started coming out about the club complaining about the new lease is going to be too expensive, it's unaffordable, I just knew at the time that was all just gamesmanship and maybe a plan, sort of politics 101 of sort of drip feeding bad news and just to try and get the climate and the fan base acclimatized to the idea of moving away. I always thought that was the general idea right at the beginning when I started hearing that, because the arguments they were making really didn't make any financial sense, and some of the comments that have come out even from our chairman Tom Cartledge are nonsensical, really, talking about having to pay £250 million in rent. But yes, but that's over 250 years, and £1 million a year rent in 250 years' time is going to be, I believe the technical phrase is a peppercorn rent, is when due to inflation it's going to be worth next to nothing in those days. If we're still all here, if we haven't all disappeared under floodwaters. So yeah, I think it's the council played their hand cleverly there and sort of exposed the hypocrisy in the Forest position.
Yeah, they have, haven't they? And if Forest are to stay at the City Ground, it's obvious that there needs to be some work done. I mean, the main stand is probably where you'd start, but with the old building, you don't know, has it got some things that might be difficult to sort of take down in there? So they're weighing up the costs. Do you think it would be very expensive for Forest to redevelop in that sort of way?
I think just for a one-off stand, I can't see that it'd be so expensive. They're basically just concrete shells. They're not. I mean, they seem to take a lot longer these days going up than they used to. I remember when Derek Pavis, the old Notts County chairman, rebuilt Meadow Lane. He seemed to do it in about 1 year. He put up 4 stands in next to no time. But these days, it do seem to take longer. There are more complex issues involved. There are more sort of fancy requirements inside the stadium, sort of hospitality, and that's the things those sort of things are the things that are going to take a lot of time. The electrics, the fitting out, and all those sort of things. I can't see why it should be any more expensive there than anywhere else. There is an argument to build a new stadium. For the cost of building that one stand, they could probably make a decent dent on making a complete stadium, due to economies of scale and factors such as that, and maybe a more hospitable building environment. But the club haven't made that argument. They've sort of played a cloak and dagger game and sort of pretending they wanted to stay at the City Ground, and they just haven't. And now there's a negative feeling towards the club. The fans are going to be suspicious of whatever they say, and sort of not trust their word anymore because they feel like they've been misled, and they treated fans as if they're stupid, and fans aren't stupid. We could all see through what the statements were saying when they were sort of complaining about the rent, and it's they've handled it very badly.
They have indeed, but now we're having to look at a future without the City Ground, and I cannot for one fathom it, because for me, the City Ground is Forest. Forest is the City Ground, and it doesn't really seem like one can survive the other without the other. You look at the good times, the bad times that we've had there. We've won European Cups and Champions Leagues and FA Cups and leagues at that ground. It's the place where not just my generation, but hundreds of years, 200 years of fans have fell in love with football. It's the place that's on our crest. Look at the waves on our crest. It's the Trent. We sing it in our pre-game song. It's the only place that I want to watch football, and I just can't for one fathom not going there every other week to watch Forest at home. So what does the City Ground mean to you, Maradona?
Yeah, all those things. It's just such a perfectly beautiful location. Just not just in terms of the practical sense of that you can get to it easily from wherever you live in Nottingham, whether you're sort of living in the north of the city, east, west, south. It's easily accessible from wherever you are. You can walk to it from the train station. You can walk from it from town. But just the general sort of atmosphere you get in that location next to the river, next to the cricket ground, Meadow Lane just over the river. It just all adds to make it such a perfect location. And it'd be such a pity to lose it. Those old stands, they might not be as shiny and pretty as some other stadiums, but they've got soul. They've got soul, and they've got atmosphere in them. They've got history ingrained in them, and that sort of oozes out from every pore of the club, every bolt, every nut. And we've all got our own memories of sort of being there, the fantastic nights. I remember sort of the glory days for me were the Frank Clark team, and just things like the whole stadium when Stan Collymore used to pick up the ball, not near the opposition goal, but your own goal. The whole stadium would stand up knowing he was about to score a goal. And nights like the Bayern Munich game and things like where people talk about an electric atmosphere, it was literally crackling with electricity that night. And so more recently, the nights with Stevie Cooper. And just to say goodbye to that will be such a pity. I know progress has to occur. Other clubs have moved on. Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham, they're all just as equally attached to their stadiums and the history of those grounds, and they've moved on. But it will be such a pity. It really will be if we're forced to leave the City Ground. I think the ideal solution is to rebuild it there and take advantage of that beautiful location again. The best location probably in world football for a professional football stadium. We would lose so much. We'd lose so much of our identity, our uniqueness, our USP. If the commercial guys at Forest are listening, it would just make us into. Would it make us any different from Derby or Stoke? I don't think so. Just an average-sized Midlands club with another sort of brand new stadium. I don't know. We're going to lose a lot if we do move.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. And I think it's not perfect, but neither is Nottingham. And I think it sums up Nottingham and represents us pretty well. I just want to bring in something that my friend said. So he's a West Ham fan, and I met him at university, and he's been going for quite a while. I don't think he had a season ticket at Upton Park, but I put something on my story about what Marinakis said, and he replied to this, and I thought it was quite moving. So I just wanted to bring it in. He said, "Don't move stadium. Ruined our club, and I don't want it to ruin another, especially a club like Forest. In an era where football is losing its identity, everybody fell in love with VAR, social media, plastic fan bases, money-hungry owners, etc. We need to stick to our traditions. Upton Park was as traditional and proper as it gets, and we sold out because the owners wanted money. They sold us empty promises, and the club lost its identity as a result. We lost our home, a part of our family. Now, another proper club like Forest want to do the same. It's ludicrous. There's no regard for fans anymore, and it's sickening. Moving ground will lose Forest's identity, which is the exact opposite of what football and what proper clubs like Forest and West Ham need right now. The City Ground is just part of you, as Upton Park was part of us. It should never be taken away from you." Now, it's quite powerful, isn't it, Maradona? Because West Ham have won a European trophy recently. They've had very decent success under David Moyes, but it doesn't seem like it cuts it. And I think that really brings it home.
Yeah, I think so. They don't seem, West Ham fans don't seem at all happy. They don't seem any happier now than they were when they weren't winning stuff. And I think that's an important point. For the majority of clubs, it's not about winning. In all the Forest history, we've had 6 successful seasons. If it was about winning, we wouldn't be going every week. We wouldn't be following them home and away. It's more than that. It's more than being winning, trying to win the league, because we know in all likelihood we're never going to do it. It's so impossibly difficult now to compete with nation states. So what if it's not about winning? What is it about? It is definitely about identity. It's about being that you belong to somewhere, and I don't think people like Marinakis maybe understand that. I found his words, but since he's come in, sometimes a bit insulting when he said Forest fans are happy just being in the Championship, middle of the Championship. We weren't happy with it, but we just had no choice. We've been terribly run for years and years and years, and we were just resigned. We were realistic. We were resigned to the situation we were in, and just it's not all about the winning for us. If it was, we wouldn't go. We'd all be supporting Man City now or whoever, you know. So I think they don't understand that aspect of it. But you know, they've got a good point that if they want to compete, they will have to build new stands and maybe a new stadium, get more revenue in, but that won't necessarily make it a happier experience for the fans. So I don't know. It's just the way football is now. It's run by people who see money first, and they use the pretense of winning as a shield to sort of cover their true intentions of why they're really here, which is to make money.
And what gets me as well is that they're acting like Forest are an established Premier League club. I mean, we came up 2 years ago. We're on the brink of becoming the worst ever Premier League side to survive, even if it gives us the 4 points back. And it's not a given that next season, if we don't improve drastically, that we're going to be there for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. And you look at the success of clubs like Newcastle and Aston Villa in their stadium. Chelsea have won leagues and Champions Leagues in a 40,000-seater stadium. And the question's got to be asked, once Forest fans are acclimatised and the sort of shock and delirium of being in the Premier League sort of cools down, would we even fill 50,000 seats? Because I guarantee if we go down, you're not going to get 50,000 people travelling to Towton to watch us against Plymouth on a Tuesday night. So I can't understand why the club are acting like this.
Yeah, well, I mean, they will sell 50,000. I won't say it's going to be Forest fans, but they will sell 50,000 seats when we play Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Man City. But they'll probably fill it with Man City, Liverpool, Man United fans, not rather than Forest fans. Forest have a core base of maybe 35,000, 40,000 people who regularly go to matches. But we could fill it up to 50,000, but we'd probably lose that home advantage. So you have to balance the fact yes, you might make more money on a one-off match day like that, but are you giving away too much of your stadium, too much of your identity, and your home advantage goes. So, I mean, you have to balance it against things like that. I mean, 50,000 seems really, really optimistic to me. The biggest crowd I've ever seen at the City Ground, this is when both ends were still standing, was only about 35,000. We did it, I think, against Manchester United and Notts County in that same season, just before we redeveloped the Trent end or the Bridgeford end. And apart from that, I've never seen that many Forest fans, apart from maybe at Wembley last year. Even in the old days when we used to go to Wembley, apart from the FA Cup, where we were only limited to about 20,000 tickets, the League Cup and the Simod Cup and the ZDS Cup, we didn't sell all the tickets in those days. Even the last League Cup final I went to was 92, and there were thousands of Manchester United fans in the Forest end, and it caused all sorts of trouble. So you have to. I think what we don't have at the club is a balance of reality sometimes. I think that's shone through in sort of the transfer business we've done in the last couple of years. You just need somebody there to say no to Marinakis, who's got enough sort of credibility and confidence enough in their own position to say, look, this isn't what's the best for the club. But I don't think there's anybody in that position at the club who can do that.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Towton then, because that's the place that's been touted. I can sort of see why they want that land, because there's not much there. They can develop it into whatever they want. But we're getting the sense of going to places like when you go to Reading away and you're not really going to the city and things like that. That's something that whenever you go there, you're just glad that your club isn't one of those. And he said in the interview with the Mail that he wants Nottingham to become a competitive city. Well, moving to that is basically moving to Leicester, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's in that sort of that triangle where sort of Leicestershire, Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire all meet, and it's full of industrial parks and the airport and things like that. And this will just be they could make a really, really brilliant stadium. It could be, brilliant sight lines from every seat, tremendous, banqueting facilities, corporate facilities, all that sort of thing. But it's just going to be functional. It's going to be. There's nothing to sort of emanate of any sort of soul of the Nottingham public or the Nottingham character. It could be anywhere. That stadium would be not out of place, as you said, in Reading, on the outskirts of Birmingham, outside of Manchester. It will say nothing about Nottingham itself. And it's just a difficult place to get to. It's just a long, long way away on public transport. There is an argument, as I said earlier, there is an argument for building a new stadium, but they've got to really think about where it's going to be and how that location is going to impact how fans get there and the experience they have. Towton seems to be universally derided so far. I haven't heard a single Forest fan say, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. What about Nuno? Because I heard a press conference and he was very much in support of Forest staying at the City Ground, which I don't know if that'll go do well with the owners or not, because I spoke to somebody that's very connected to the club yesterday, and the feeling very much is that the owner and the chairman and the bigwigs in the club are very much for a move, and probably Towton is the right place. So the manager coming out and saying that, really almost begging for us to stay at the City Ground, is he going to be sacked? Is he going to survive? Because Marinakis won't like that.
Well, I don't think he's going to be sacked because of that, but probably, I don't think he's going to last years. But I don't think he'll get sacked because of that. He's got to say that to stay on side with the fans, doesn't he? And from his point of view, it probably is nice being a manager at Forest. He's got that closeness to the fans and that atmosphere. It's not really helped us since he's been in because our home record's not been great this season. But in theory, it should help. And he's not silly. He knows what right thing to say to sort of stay on the right side of the fans. So, but no, I don't see him getting sacked because of that. But whether he's here this time next year, I very much doubt it.
Yeah, we're sort of moving into the second story as well with the interview with the Mail, which is really where a lot of this stemmed from. But what about the timing of it? I mean, I'm assuming that he probably did this interview before the Chelsea game because I can't imagine that he's been to his London headquarters. It's been written, edited, proofread and all that before Tuesday. So I'd imagine he's done that before the Chelsea game. So do you think his mind can change at all? Because we saw him applaud when everybody said something for the City ground in the Bright Club stand opposite. I looked straight to him and he was applauding. I could see that he was recognising that. But that all just seems like a bit of a front. So I don't think there's much we can do really to convince them otherwise. I think they'll do what they want, won't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, is it basically as a legal entity, it's his club, it's his money. He can do what he wants. That's the bare bones of it. There's all sorts of arguments that owners don't own the club, they're just custodians. But at the moment, legally, he is the owner. He can decide if he wants to move the club from the City ground to somewhere else. It's in his power to do that. I think it all comes down to where they can find the location and how much of a backlash there will be. But I'm pretty certain they've made up their minds. They're not going to want to stay at the City ground. I'd be amazed if we're still there in sort of 10 years' time.
Yeah, he's done a lot of good things for us that we can't acknowledge, but I think if he moves us to Toto in particular, I think that will forever taint his stewardship of us. But onto the second story and another part of the interview that I did with the Mail, which was, well, I don't think we're ever going to see the back of that Everton game, are we? It still keeps cropping up. That was the line that the Mail sort of led with, I suppose, because that's going to get them the most clicks. And talking about Forest taking legal action against Sky and against Gary Neville, I mean, what does he want from this Maradona? Does he want a public apology? Does he want money that he doesn't need? What does he want from this situation?
I really don't know. I don't know why. He's like a dog with a bone. I don't know why they didn't just let it lie now. To draw a line under it, look forward to next season. Going through sort of legal action doesn't benefit anybody apart from the lawyers, and it just reflects really poorly on us as a club, and sort of just him as an individual. That he's that bothered about what Gary Neville says and what Sky pundits say. Who cares? It's disposable, just words. Nobody remembers it. Sort of a week later, what the Sky pundits say. They're just feeling like we all are. He says rather hypocritically, filling dead air, and they're looking for content. And sometimes you just say things off the top of your head you don't necessarily mean, just to be entertaining, and just to keep on bringing it up again. Now, I mean, the one where they say I wasn't on the pitch. Okay, yes, technically you weren't on the pitch. You were standing next to the pitch, but to anybody from an outside looking on, you came from your director's box through the tunnel and stood right next to the pitch. I have never seen another owner of any football club in this country ever do that. That's why it's noteworthy. That's why people were commenting on it. That's why people found it astonishing. Standing there in an intimidating way, looking at the referee, does no favours to you, the club, or anything else. It's just trip effect of sort of going on the back of referees and things like that. Despite we're all frustrated by the bad decisions, but it was a drop ball. To do that over a drop ball, to walk down there, stand next to the pitch, is ridiculous. I just don't understand it. It's just for somebody of his age and his apparent sort of position in life with a successful businessman and all these things. Some of these actions seem pretty petty to me.
Yeah. Just finally, before we go to the break, I want to touch on something else that he said in the interview that he claims that he drove Forest to the Premier League. Now, that's something that I can't lie, really did quite frustrate me, because I remember a time a few months before we got promotion where there was murmurs of him potentially wanting to leave the club and sell it. There was no sort of concrete evidence of that. But Forest were bottom of the table with the team that was assembled by him and his staff and Chris Hughton. And then, to give him credit, he got the appointment right with Steve Cooper. But, I mean, we've seen the poor treatment of people with Cooper, Gary Brazil, Dane Murphy, all people with sort of good regard in the fan base. Marinakis just always wants the credit, doesn't he? How much credit do you give him, Maradona, for us now being in the Premier League?
It's a difficult one because without his money, we probably wouldn't be there. But would there be somebody else waiting in the wings to put that money in? I don't know. Clubs always seem to find a billionaire. I was going to say a gullible millionaire or billionaire to fund it, because it makes no sense to buy a football club, really. Hardly any of them make any money. So you have to wonder why they do it, but they keep on doing it. So yeah, thankfully he bought us when we were at a low ebb. But then, apart from putting money in, which is a lot, I admit, there was no sort of logical direction there from above. No sort of great tactical or what's the word I'm looking for? Strategic vision there that got us up. It was just shake it and see. Okay, Chris Hughes didn't work. Okay, next guy on the line, Steve Cooper. And we were just lucky that it worked with Steve Cooper. We were lucky Dane Murphy happened to be there at the same time. Yeah. We were lucky that Jed Spence happened to be there at the same time. It all worked so beautifully well that it made us believe again that football was magic and that fairy tales can happen and do happen. It allowed us to dream again. And that dream is slightly soured now as a realities of sort of Premier League life, where, quite frankly, fans of most clubs seem to be pretty miserable all of the time. They're complaining about not winning, not complaining about if they are winning, not winning in the right style. They're complaining about referees. And it's just first world problems, people. Just try being a fan languishing in the Championship, the League One. Just enjoy it. Why is everybody so miserable?
Definitely. Just quickly, briefly, before we go to the break, what do you think of an owner doing an interview with a newspaper? Do you like the idea or not?
I mean, I don't mind it. It provided us with those fantastic images of him showing off his tattoos, which I think is just marvelous. I mean, I'd love to see. Can you imagine the Liverpool owner or somebody like that just standing there with their arms wrapped around them, seductively showing off their tattoos? So no, I mean, I think we've got to be grateful for any sort of amusing image that is generated by. For a moment, I thought it was an AI generated thing, but it's completely genuine. So sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. There's nothing wrong with an owner giving an interview. It's communicating with the fans. It's just not necessarily the message we all want to hear at this time.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of us did enjoy the AI images of him in a thing ready to go down what's it called? Ready to go down a slide. Water slides, yeah. Really enjoyed them. But yeah, we'll take a break and we'll be back after this.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
Like all of our podcasts this season, this episode of 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast, is sponsored by Greene King Sport, where football is more than a game. Make Greene King your go-to destination for the season's final stretch. But why? Well, for one, you can wash every televised Forest game down with delicious food and refreshing beverages. And with 900 sports pubs dotted around the UK, chances are you're within walking distance of your local Greene King. Let's be honest, watching football is way better with friends and family, so get the squad together for every televised Premier League fixture in an atmosphere worth sharing. That includes huge title showdowns, huge, the race for European qualification, and nail-biting relegation six-pointers, unfortunately involving our very own Nottingham Forest. Don't forget to download the Green King Sport app to enjoy exclusive competitions and discounts whenever there's a game on. Now it's back to your podcast.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast, and the Friday 5 on the 17th of May 2024. Now let's take a look at the third story that Jamie brought us, which was that Benfica scout Pedro Ferrara is joining Forest as a scout sort of thing. Maradona, is this another scapegoat? Because Marinakis does like to take the blame, and maybe Sirianos was unfairly sacked after doing some good signings. Is this the next person that's going to get the blame, or can you see this working?
I mean, he's obviously very talented at his job, so I hope it works. But it's just, as we were just discussing in part one, will he get the time? Will he get the resources? Will he have the authority to make the difficult decisions that are required sometimes in this sort of thing, this sort of role? That's where I'm sceptical. Again, will he be here this time next year? History suggests he probably won't be. It seems to be a tie-up with the George Mendes arrangement we have, which, again, I'm sceptical about. I don't really understand how that works, how it benefits the club, what the quid pro quo arrangement is there. His interest, his priority are the interests of his clients, which are the players. He's got to get the best deal for them. So it seems like a slight conflict of interest where he's representing both us and the player. Yeah. So it didn't work out brilliantly well for us last time out, and I'm just not sure how it's going to work. I don't understand what if there's another, if say Champions League Aston Villa are in for a player and we're in for a player, is he going to make the player come to us rather than them? Would seem like at odds against his major roles as an agent to that player. Is he going to say to the player, come to Forest at reduced wages? I doubt it, because he gets money from commission as being the agent of the player and his wages. Are Forest going to be restricted about how they can use other agents? I don't know. If so, that might leave us to a disadvantage. So I'm not quite sure how any of this is going to work. But all I'll say is he seems to be the scout guy from Benfica, talented man. If he's allowed to do his job, I'm sure he'll do a cracking job here.
Yeah, who knows what's going on with Forest, really. But it'd be interesting to see Wilson, Sirianos, Marinakis, and now this guy, somebody else, who's going to control transfers, the big mystery. But if we can find another Murillo, then I'm sure he'll be remembered with a lot of fondness. Let's move on to the fourth story then, which is about Giovanni Reina, probably not staying at the City Ground next year and going back to Borussia Dortmund. He could win a Champions League battle, I believe, should Dortmund win the final. They're through, aren't they, to the final? But yeah, it's not really a surprise to see Reina not coming back. I mean, I've not really been that impressed with him when he's played. I think he's not a winger, which is where he's had most of his minutes. But I think he's maybe not looked physically ready for the Premier League, and there's not really been a desire from Nuno to play him, maybe because there isn't a buy option. So it seems like the right decision on both parts here, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really understand the signing in the first place. Whenever I'd seen him play for Dortmund, I wasn't there particularly impressed by him. And so as that winger number 10 role, he seemed far too physically weak to play in the Premier League and come into a team fighting relegation. I couldn't see that he was the type of character or player we needed at the time. So I'm not particularly surprised it hasn't worked out well, especially considering he'd been injured for the first half of the season, hadn't really played any minutes, from what I understand, or many minutes at least. So yeah, I'm not particularly surprised. I didn't really understand why we signed him at the time, and sort of I've been proven correct there, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a position we probably need to strengthen, though, isn't it? Because you look at Gibbs White, there isn't that much behind him, and should we lose him, really hope we don't. But should we lose him, we need to have a ready replacement. So, is that a position you'd prioritise for Forest in the summer? I mean, I'd love to see us sign someone like Sammy Smolix from the Championship, but I suppose every team in our position, that's the dream, isn't it? So, how much of a priority is signing somebody in that position?
Yeah, well, yeah, that I think the area of the pitch that needs the most work is probably central defence. I think that's, but I mean, it's a completely fool's errand trying to predict Forest transfer business, because this time last year I said all we need are four players. There's just maybe a left back to replace Loddy, a quality goalkeeper, a striker backup, and maybe something different in central midfield. And then I was looking at the team lineup against Chelsea and the whole squad lineup, and compared it to the one against Arsenal. And there are only 7 players left from the Arsenal game to this game. So there's a huge churn of players.
Yeah.
And I can see that happening again. Regards to number 10, I've got maybe an out there theory or idea. You can maybe try Sangare there as a because I don't think he's strong enough or just defensively disciplined enough to play sort of deeper in midfield. But he's got technical ability. He can pass the ball and he can score a goal too. So maybe stick him up there, just behind the striker, where he doesn't have too much defensive responsibility, and you might just see the best out of him. But what do I know?
Well, he's tall. We could see a sort of Thomas Souček type player coming in there. Hopefully.
So the one I was thinking of was the guy at Everton,
Decore.
Yeah, that's sort of, but maybe a more skillful version of that. So I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, as they say in America.
You heard it here first. Sangare in the car. If it happens, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. We only do top knowledge here. Let's move on to the final story then. Callum Hudson-Odoi, 100 Premier League appearances, and capped it off with a goal against his former club as well. I remember when Forest played Chelsea away in a FA Cup game, and we played them pretty much on the same year, 2 years in a row, didn't we, at Stamford Bridge? Lost both games 2-0, and I think Hudson-Odoi in the first game, it might have been, scored a couple of goals against us. I didn't go, but my granddad coming back and absolutely raving about this. He didn't know his name, but he said, that left winger, some player, bit of pace about him, bit of finishing, and I don't think we ever thought we'd end up with a player like him, but I suppose an injury and a bit of inconsistency has seen him end up at Forest, but his performances over the last couple of games have really seen an improvement under Nuno as well. And hopefully Maradona, the first of 100 more appearances for us.
Yeah, I mean, the ability's always been there. It's just his fitness that's always held him back. And hopefully now he's had that run of games. He's maybe got over those initial niggles that you get when you come back after long injuries. And we with a bit of luck, we'll see the best of him and be an even better player for us next season. Score more goals, set up more goals, and hopefully, touch wood, it'll be brilliant for us. Be many years to come.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, you know what he's going to do: cut inside and slap it in that far corner is what he'll try and do. But it's so hard to stop, as we've seen. And I guess the reason why he's at a club like us is because he doesn't let me have the consistency. He doesn't do it on a regular basis, and his good form came on the back of a couple of frustrating performances where he just didn't get it into the box. So I guess that's why he's at a club like us. But if those consistent performances can come, then yeah, it's really exciting for next season. But we'll move on. We've got a bonus story for you that Jamie didn't include in the roundup, which is that VAR potentially will be scrapped. I mean, to be honest, it's music to my ears. I absolutely despise VAR. But I think there's a lot of people out there that want it changing, and it's looking highly unlikely that this is going to go and pass through. So Maradona, I mean, I love going to championship games, the FA Cup replays that we had where we had no VAR. I absolutely love it and would go back in an instant. What do you think about the whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, when I heard the news, first of all, my heart did a little dance because I absolutely hate VAR. Just as I was saying, with regards to the stadium, that Forest fans aren't necessarily there to watch a winning or successful team. Exactly the same thing here. It doesn't matter if it's 100% right. If you're taking away the joy from it, the joy of that winning, that scoring a goal without sort of having to wait and sort of holding it back in. The interminable delays of just rocking and rolling over the same video, having goals ruled offside for just having toenails off in an offside position. It's just so frustrating, so annoying, and it's just I just wish they'd stop it. I just wish they will, but I know they won't, because the people who run the game don't understand football. They think it's got to be right, because they'll say, well, there's lots of money on the line for the big clubs. It could cost somebody a Champions League place, but it's just killing the game. They don't understand football, and I think I've come up with a good analogy. It's like, say you're too young to be married yet, George, so don't worry about this. You
don't know.
Say you're having an argument with your wife, and you know you're right. But sometimes a wise thing to do is just let her think she's right, and just let her get, just for an easy life, a better life. Just accept that you're wrong and carry on. And then this is exactly the same in this. We'll take some wrong decisions because it will improve our overall footballing lives. It's just please scrap it, please. Everybody's going to Burnley. Sing the rude song about VAR. Make sure the message is out there. We don't want VAR. Let's get rid of it, please.
Does the wife listen to this podcast, Maradona?
No, she hates football.
This will be the one that she does now. You watch. Just quickly as a solution, I saw Rich on social media in the group chat. He said something about bringing in ex-players. Now, what do you think about that? I really don't think that can work, maybe because they don't know the laws, and I get the principle, but maybe you should get them to set the rules as opposed to implement them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that was exactly my initial thought as well. Most players don't know the laws, and I think a lot of them just wouldn't have the interest in being involved. But I mean, if it's next to a referee who knows the rules, maybe it work. But I think that would just increase that sort of delay even more while they're having the conversation, while you're explaining the rules. Roger, say there's Joey Barton's in there. They explain the rules. Barton, can you imagine it? It's just take ages, wouldn't it? But I just scrap it. We loved football before VAR, didn't we? What was wrong with it? Because nobody thought it was broken, so why fix it? I just just scrap it, get rid of it.
Perfect. Thank you, Maradona. Now, just before we go, Burnley at the weekend. I've seen a lot of people on social media thinking about fancy dress, referees and things like that. I've got an idea at the minute. I've got a Brennan Johnson top from last year. I was thinking full kit, Brennan Johnson, because people have chanted his name out before, so I thought I might embrace it. Have you got any better ideas for me?
I don't necessarily like fancy dress. I'm a miserable person by nature. No, I can't think of anything now. Now you put me on. Well, I don't know.
I'll stick to Brennan, shall I?
So stick to Brennan Johnson. I can't think of anything. I really can't. Maybe people go as bananas and all sorts, don't they? Donuts.
Very true. Very true. I'm actually intolerant to bananas, which many people don't believe so.
Oh, all right. Maybe a sexy nurse. Would you go as a sexy nurse?
I think I'll pass on that one, to be honest. But anyway, it's taken a turn for the worse. So I think we'll end it there. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Maradona, for joining me as well. You can find all the links to where you listen and to follow us on social media at the words 1865.football. We'll be back following the Burnley game. I think it's Stephen and Tom doing that one to round the season off, and then we'll have a big pod just to review it after that. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend, and come on, you Reds.
Maybe a sexy nurse. Would you go as a sexy nurse?
Sports Social Podcast Network. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.